Okay, and welcome to Health, Wealth, Self, episode 5. Today is going to be a solo dolo episode, mostly because it's been pretty hectic. So last time we recorded was, we were in Sao Paulo. I recorded with Jay. And since he left, I've been back to work. And things have just been pretty hectic, pretty crazy. I'm actually recording this a lot later than I would have liked to. But, you do it when you can and you get it in when you can. And that's just what you do. So, for those on video here, behind me is the beautiful Rio de Janeiro. This is actually where my logo for the podcast itself is taken from. This is at my friend's apartment. I would love to one day get him on this podcast, but the reason I am here is because this is his wedding weekend, wedding week for my friend here. So until he's actually on the podcast, I won't drop who it is in case he doesn't want to be on it. But it's his wedding week, so he has a lot of other things going on that are a little bit more important than this podcast here. But he would be great to have on because he's an inspiring story. He's great. So on today's episode, what I'd really like to do is I'd like to talk a little bit about this city here. Coming from Sao Paulo to this is a big change, but this city also has a ton to offer as well, but it's very different. Last year, I lived here for 3 months. And it was amazing. Man, it was an amazing 3 months. So I have some things that I could, really dive into here. So we'll dive into as much as we can, and then the travel, sum up the travels thus far and where that has gone. So yes, behind me, as you can see, or if you can't, he's right. Amazing apartment right on the ocean here. You got some mountains in the background. The ones in particular that his apartment is viewing is the Two Brothers, and the Two Brothers is beautiful. If you haven't seen the backdrop of Ipanema Beach, Leblon, in Rio de Janeiro, it is mystical. It's not something I think if you haven't been here that you'd ever seen. So first and foremost, that's what you get here. Beach. This is beach culture. And it has amazing beaches. The water's a little cold, I gotta say. But the beach culture here is awesome. It's really good. And it's pretty much beach here all year round. It's even though it's very close to Sao Paulo, this is a city that's just very hot and humid. So just background, for if you haven't listened before, I'm originally from the northeast of the United States, where it gets very, very, very cold. So if you were to ask a Brazilian if it gets cold here, they'd say yes, but it probably in Rio only really drops to maybe 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So, and when it's 70 degrees Fahrenheit, they're wearing scarves and, sweatshirts and that. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. So for me, it stays even in the winter, it stays really warm, where I think you could be on a beach year round. They wouldn't, local Brazilians wouldn't be on a beach year round, but I think you can definitely do that if you do come here in their winter. Right now, I think it's getting close to their winter. I think they're kind of in middle of fall right now. And even in this middle of fall, I think it's close to 80 degrees right now. Fahrenheit. So I'm sweating. I sweat a lot when you're here. But if you're looking for that and you're sick of the cold, this place is great for that. I really enjoyed my time here last year. Would I come back and live here again? I think that I would, but I think where I'm at in my life, I think Sao Paulo offers more because I think I just like the big city life. So one of the big differences that I felt when I was here is that the nightlife here is just very drastically different. Sao Paulo kind of has this more, I think, traditional nightlife. And I think here in Rio, it's not so much. You can find traditional nightlife if you look. But if you're staying in, which I think at the areas if you do want to come visit here, you should be staying in, and that's really Ipanema Beach and Leblon, which by American standards are actually relatively expensive. A lot more expensive, actually, than some of the nicer neighborhoods in Sao Paulo, which I find kind of bizarre. But it's probably because it's right on the beach, old money, that kind of thing. But yeah, you can find the traditional nightlife if you want, but it's more difficult to find. In Sao Paulo on a Wednesday, you could be walking around and find some good stuff to do, and people will be out pretty late. Here, that's really not going to be the case. They kind of keep their nightlife for Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But what happens here that's so much better is like festival kind of culture. So there'll be usually 1 to 2 like really big parties that happen on a weekend, and you get a bunch of friends together and you go. But that's kind of at the same time my issue with it. Not to say that's an issue because I love it here, but is that if you don't really kind of have a social circle here, or friends that you can go out with, it can be kind of difficult because there isn't like in Sao Paulo, New York, big cities. There is like this culture of where you can go out into a bar alone and be completely fine. Here, that's a lot more difficult, especially if you're in the neighborhoods where I think you should be, and that's here in Ipanema. It's a lot more difficult to go do that. Yes, there are apps, and that's what I took advantage of last year, whether it be Tinder or whatever, where you can meet and create kind of a social circle relatively quickly. If you don't have one here, though, you can't just expect to go walk around and kind of go just find whatever you want. Like a big city, you could. So that's kind of my biggest issue right off the top in terms of the differences. But if you're someone that likes to do more nature stuff and hiking, like the hiking here is awesome. And wow, what views. I mean, you can hike up to the Cristo Redeemer, which I'm sure if you've seen pictures of the Rio, skyline, you would see it kind of overlooks everything, and some of the views you get from there are just absolutely incredible of the ocean. There's hiking Sugarloaf, there's hiking the Two Brothers behind me. Rio has this kind of unprecedented jungle, like right in the city. And it's actually there on purpose, because if it wasn't there, and I learned this last year when I was here, if it wasn't there, it would get so unbearably hot that people couldn't live here. So it's actually the forest inside the city allows it to be able to be bearable. The trees and the forest in here allows it to do that. So yeah, so outdoorsy and daytime stuff here are A+, especially on the beach. This apartment that I'm at now and where I lived last year was 2 blocks away from the beach. You can go down there anytime. They block off on Sundays. They block off the road that runs parallel to the beach, and it's just really nice to be outside. The outside culture here is huge. So if you're looking for an outside culture, daytime culture, beach culture, man, Rio really kind of offers that to you. This comparison might not stick for some, but for me it does. It's kind of like Sao Paulo is in New York. If you're looking at via a comparison with the States, Sao Paulo is like a New York, and the Rio here is more of a LA, San Diego, where it's very daytime. There's a lot of stuff to do during the day. There's a lot of outdoor activities. Beach life and beach culture is huge. But whereas in New York, the nightlife is, A+, best in the world, San Diego, is lacking in the nightlife department, so to speak. But there are, since the weather's so nice, there's always tons of festivals. There's always something some event that you can be looking at and going to. So I kind of liken that to here. So yeah, nightlife, beach, A+. I mean, a beach here, daytime activities, hiking, A+ here. Really is good. And you still get, if you listen to our last podcast, Sao Paulo, you definitely should, because we touched on, me and Jason, we touched on the culture a lot, and it's very similar here. It's still Brazilian culture. It's still all that. So you still get that same sort of life and lifestyle and culture here. So that's obviously a benefit, because that's something that I really like and really enjoy. Some of the other differences are poverty's a lot more. I mean, let's jump into safety. So safety here, I think, in Sao Paulo, you're in this bubble, right? If you're in a nicer neighborhood, like if you kind of go Avienda Paulista and you kind of go down to along the river and the park there, and you go to Pinheiros, Jardins, Itaim, Via Olympia, all those neighborhoods right there, you're in this kind of nice neighborhood bubble where you don't have to worry about safety too much, other than the occasional like petty theft. Here it's a lot more visible, just because actually some things in the skyline are the favelas. So you see these favelas kind of all over the place. And it's actually why the favelas are exactly that reason why I wouldn't recommend so much to go and visit Copacabana. I mean, I know that's stuff that you hear, but Copacabana, there's a favela that sits right on the top of Copacabana, and things kind of seep down into it. And not that the safety is a huge issue there, but it is. It's more of an issue than I think you'd have to worry about in Sao Paulo, in the nicer neighborhoods, and it's more of an issue than you'd have to worry about here in Ipanema or Leblon, which, if you're going to come to Rio, those are the two places that I recommend to go. They're just the most safe, and yes, you'll still have the petty theft, but if you're not dumb or too flagrant with the fact that you're a tourist or something like this, I think you'll be able to you'll be fine, really. So safety wise, I think it's an issue. It's more of an issue than Sao Paulo, but it's not it's not so crazy where I don't think you wouldn't enjoy. I think you could come here and still absolutely enjoy it. Since it's my friend's wedding this week, his parents are down, and they've been down to Brazil once before, but they feel we spoke last night and we were talking about it, and they said that they feel pretty safe. They feel not like it's too much of an issue. It's just kind of the same things where don't walk around alone at night. Don't be walking around with your phone out. That kind of things. You could run into some issues if that. So yeah. So those are my big kind of takeaways from Rio. It's very brief. I would like to have my friend on or someone else to go into more depth about some of the things of Rio, because you could really get into the beaches and what kind of festivals and the different beaches that are around here, the travel. Like, for me at this point, I think what I would really like to do, if all cards on the table, I would like to live in Sao Paulo and come here to Rio for weekends to visit. I think that's kind of the best of both worlds for a person in a personality like me, where that's where I think I'd be able to get the most out of it. During the week, it's just a little bit more lackluster here, but I like the energy in Sao Paulo because I still feel like I will still get work done. I still feel like I want to work because it is a very, at the same time, kind of like working culture. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's a brief breakdown of Rio. If there's any other questions you have on Rio, whether you should come, whether you should visit, which I think you should, because I can't be more of an advocate of Brazil. I'm just a big fan of things down here and the culture, the way of life, the way that it is. But the beaches here are pretty stunning, and some of the views that you get from the beaches are awesome. And something I didn't mention about the beaches that I really like, and I wish they'd bring back to the States, would be it's kind of like it's a full service stop, and it's relatively cheap. So you walk down to the beach, you don't have to bring chairs, you don't have to bring anything. People are there's workers down there that will give you chairs, and they're like I said, they're relatively cheap, especially in with the Brazilian real right now and the way that it is. I think at the time of this recording, I think it's something like 3.6, 3.7 to 1 to the US dollar. So it's pretty nice. You get a lot for your money. But you go down to the beach, they'll give you chairs. And then, if you just look at them and you wave your finger at them, to come over, you can get anything from alcoholic beverages to coconut waters to, and then people are walking around with food. So it's kind of like you don't have to get up. And I like this because at beaches in America, you have to, if you want to get anything, right, then you have to get up and walk to the boardwalk and then walk along. Here you don't get to do that. You can kind of just sit, relax on the beach. It's calm. It's a lot more calm and relaxed here just in general than Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo is more of a hustle, bustle place. But like I said, I think right now in my life, I think that's what interests me more than anything else. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. So that's a brief breakdown of Rio. I wish it wasn't so cloudy so people watching the video. But, more or less that's what I like about here. So this week, so now kind of like a life update, travel update. So this week, I was back to work last week and was very busy with that. But it went really well. Man, I'm really enjoying my time down here in Brazil, and it's put a lot of things, I think, in perspective. It makes you think a lot more about stuff. And I wanted to I think go into a couple of those things today, and just some of the realizations and awakenings, not awakenings, that's dramatic, but things that I've realized that since I've been down here, and something I realized that I really think I just need to get better at in general. I felt like I think I'm really starting to realize that with this traveling here, some of the things that I thought were, that I think become part of your everyday, life, when you're in a place for too long or you're doing something and you're starting to becoming comfortable in an area, can be kind of monotonous and can be kind of, I think they play a bigger deal than what you think. And then when you're down here, I think what's really, and this doesn't have to be, I think, just for, traveling or anything. I think it's kind of like getting out of your comfort zone. And I think it's just seeing new things, like really in general. It's like, some of the things that, like, as I was living in San Diego for the 3 months before I came down here, that I thought were important and that I thought were something that I really wanted to be doing and this and that, you come down here and you realize that these things just really don't matter. And I think one of the big things that it's just how much I miss my, the friends down here. It's like you go away. I haven't seen, some of the friends that I have here for, just far too long. And I think what they offer me in terms of friendship is just so valuable. And I think something that I'm really bad at and I need to get better at, and I really need to get better at, is some of the friends that I've had for my entire life. I think something that I really, really suck at is that I think I put expectations on them, I think, way too harshly. And I think everyone can relate to this, and if you can't, bear with me. Is that I think sometimes you have friendships that are really long, and they could be for years, whether they be male, female, whatever. And I think there's going to be a point where all of a sudden your interests or your life journey or your focuses are just not going to be aligned anymore. And I think I've tried so hard and wrongly, I think, to judge and to, think wrong, go into a point where I'm thinking subconsciously that they're making the wrong decision, or that they're not living their best life, or, kind of crazy thoughts like this. And that's just not right? I think everybody has their own journey and the way that they want to live life. And that may not line up with you. But that doesn't mean that they still can't be your best friends, right? I think something that I still have such a hard time with that I'm really trying to work through with myself is that, everyone isn't going to have the same belief system as you do, or everyone's not going to have the same. What's going to excite you is not necessarily what's going to excite somebody else, or even some of your best friends that you maybe had something that has, aligned you to in terms of your journey, that has kept you together and kept you best friends for such a long time. But that may not be, something that continues. But that doesn't mean that you can't not be friends with that person. That doesn't mean they still don't offer things to your life. That doesn't mean you have to end this friendship, right? I feel like I do, and maybe, some of you guys do too, is that when you're friends with somebody and, your interests don't align anymore, it's almost kind of like, oh, well, this person's not good for me anymore, right? Maybe not that dramatic, but there are times where I feel like, well, there still are things that they're giving you, yeah? There still are, positives, and there still are things that they give to you that make you better, or that they can still raise you up in different ways, but they just might not be the same anymore. And I think that my biggest flaw is I feel like I used to think it's so all or nothing, that I used to subconsciously get mad at my friends if they didn't want to do something that I thought was best for them. When in reality, I have no idea what's best for them. Why would I know what's best for my friends? No one knows what's best for you except you. You know what I mean? And I think just because they aren't, aligned with you anymore. And this can go for a relationship or a friendship. It's just if something you feel like if someone is holding you back and you feel like is stunting your growth in some way, you don't have to completely cut that person out of your life, but maybe they just won't play as big of a role in your life, right? Just because maybe, a relationship has reached its end, doesn't mean that that person still doesn't add some sort of value into your life. It just may not be the same sort of value that you're used to. And sometimes that can be super scary. I think that can be very scary, that because you either got comfortable with this person, or, this person's always been there for you in every way, and now thinking about them in just in a smaller kind of role in your life can be very scary. And I think I've been very scared of that too with some of my closest friends. But bringing it full circle, I think what it allows me to do is that the friends that I have down here, I would have never met them. In general, I would have never been able to have any of these experiences at all if it wasn't for the fact of me being like, okay, the way that I see, the journey of my friends is not the same journey that I feel like I'm on anymore. So now what do I do? And I took the risk of trying to go out and do something completely different than I would say the majority of my friend group. And at the time I was angry at them. It was more subconscious. I wasn't like yelling at them or anything. But I think subconsciously I was angry for the fact that I'm like, how can you be this, or how can this happen? And in actuality, that's not fair. That's not fair at all. They're exactly, everyone in this world is exactly where they're supposed to be, exactly when they're supposed to be there, right? If you are where you are at in your life is exactly where you're supposed to be. Where you go next is completely up to you. But where you are now is there. And you can't force anybody to go into a direction that they don't genuinely want to go to. And that's something I'm still trying to learn, that you can't force a life on anyone. If they want to change and they look to you to some way as a role model because you've maybe changed in your past or you've done something, that's great. And, I would say try to help and guide them as much as you can. But you can't force somebody to do something that they don't feel is right for them just because you feel it's right for them. That's not something you can do. But when I kind of stepped out and kind of looked for people, I think in my life that I felt like had a very or more similar kind of interest path that I had, it's like my life, I feel like I've grown more in the past 3 years because I put myself in these situations than I've grown, in the previous 10. And I think it's just more because I was scared. I put myself out there. I didn't let what I felt was comfortable take me over. But at the same time, I didn't let it take me over. But that doesn't mean I lost those friends. Some of my best friends in the whole wide world, our interests don't really align, and I don't know if they even understand what I'm doing so much. Like, we talk about it, but I don't know if it they absorb it or as much as really understand it as much. But that's okay. That's okay. Like, someone doesn't have to fit. I think I'm so guilty of like putting people in boxes and kind of like, they have to fit everything in that box. And if they don't fit everything in that box, then poof, you're out. But that's not how the way the world works. Like, people are so dynamic. People are so different. People are so like completely, you can never pin down exactly who somebody is. You can know somebody very well, but that still doesn't mean that you're going to know everything about that person. And you're going to be able to choreograph their life for them. Like, they're still going to be completely different. And just because someone doesn't check off all your boxes of this person, should be in my life, but do they add some type of value in your life at all? If they don't add any value, then yeah, get rid of them. But if they still add some value, then just because they don't check off all the boxes doesn't mean that they can't check off one or two, right? And they can't add value in those ways. But, you also at the same time can't let that hold you back to be doing, your own journey. Like, your own journey is going to be yours. And sometimes your friends aren't going to align with that journey, but that gives you the opportunity to go seek out people where that part, the boxes that maybe they don't check off anymore, that gives you the opportunity to go find new people to check off those boxes. And I think that's amazing, because I wouldn't be down here right now. I wouldn't be in this apartment recording this podcast with this view behind me. Or even in Sao Paulo in general, having the experiences that I have, if I didn't go out and seek the people to check off the boxes that I felt like I was veering from the rest of my friend group with, I wouldn't have any of this, right? And I think that's so important to not, like hate or not like get down on people for them not being able to check off those boxes anymore, but at the same time still have them in your life to be able to add some value, right? And I try very hard to do that, in that, there have been times when people have asked me, I can't believe you're friends with this person, or I can't believe that you're this and there. And it's like, well, they add value to my life. They may not be, somebody that is completely in my, someone that checks off all the boxes, someone who's completely like me, because everyone's so different. But maybe they add value in one very niche area, and I add value to them in one very niche area, and so then we create a friendship, we create this bond. And I think that's super valuable. So yes, long story short there, really try to make sure, I think, if I can have any type of experiences to draw from, is that just because, somebody's interests may not align with yours completely 100%, at this point, doesn't mean that they still don't add some value, but that gives you so many opportunities to be able to go out and find people that now can do that. And then when you do, and you do find some people that, can be in your life and not fill a void, that's dramatic, but be able to have their interests in certain ways that maybe your old friend group didn't do, or your old relationship didn't do, or something, man, the possibilities are so endless on where you can go with that and what you can do. It's not, something that I think is, pretty inspiring, is just when you meet some of these people, like when you meet the people that where your interests do align, and you were like, wow, I didn't even realize that this was out there still, or I didn't even realize that you could find people like this. It's just so inspiring. It makes you want to do so much. It makes you want to be I feel like just being down here in the month that I've been down here, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks that I've been down here now. Some of the things that I thought were so important back in San Diego, or some of the things that I thought that I liked, I realized that, I don't like, and that's okay. And that's fine. And, things have kind of shifted, and priorities kind of change in that. But if you don't step out of the box and try to find the people that can do that for you and inspire you in those ways that you want to be inspired, then, you're lacking in that. And I think, go seek that out, because it's the things that can come from it, I think are really cool. So that's my little rant on kind of some of the realizations that I've had since I've been down here, is that, man, I just love my friends down here, man. And I love my friends everywhere in the world. They all offer something different, and it's may change over time. It has changed over time. My friends' roles in my life, like even particular friends, but that doesn't mean they still don't add complete and utter amazing value. And I love it. It makes it's really fulfilling, and it's really rewarding to be putting yourself in situations where you truly feel inspired, and you truly feel like you are doing what you want to be doing, right? So you are at this point where, the things that I want to be doing in life, I'm absolutely doing. The places I want to be, I'm there, right? So that's my rant on that. The Solo Dolo podcasts are going to be maybe have some rants in them, because I've been known to rant from time to time. But hopefully they add some value, and hopefully they can inspire in some ways, and maybe bring some clarity, or maybe bring some questions, And if you have any, just let me know. I'd be happy to talk through. I'd be happy to do that. So coming up, I got a wedding this weekend. I'm going up to Belo Horizonte for that. Very excited about that. I'm super happy for my friend. I can't say that enough. Love their relationship. I'm really like his fiance, really like them together. They're a great couple. So that should be awesome. I'm excited about that. And then it's back to Sao Paulo on Sunday night. I'm excited to get back there and hang out with some of the people that are back there. So yeah, that's going to do it for me today. I hope you enjoyed listening. If you did, please subscribe. There'll be content coming at you every week. So thank you so much for listening. Until next time, be happy, be healthy, keep grinding. Peace out.